Welcome to my acrylic painting channel. I'm Karen Rice. I'm going to be painting an atmospheric step-by-step cityscape tutorial using a limited palette. For a full list of the materials I'll be using in this tutorial and the photo link, please see the description below. So, shall we get started? I'm actually going to be working more landscape than portrait, which the photograph is like. So already I'm making sort of artistic changes to suit me. And I've drawn quite a low horizon, sort of just above a third above the bottom of the page. I put some framing tape around my canvas paper here. It's acrylic paper. And I'm just mixed up the red and blue together, a touch of water in there, using a small brush, and I'm just sort of composing the composition. Just put a little vanishing point just right of center there, a little dot. So I want all my soft curved diagonals to appear to meet there, and it's 1 point perspective, and it's a nice simple way of creating depth in your painting. I've watered down this color now, and I'm just painting sort of the very basic shapes of the buildings in the distance. If you're starting out in acrylics, I will put a link in the description below about stay wet palettes and just the sort of equipment that you need to start you can get when you start out in acrylic painting, and ways of saving money as well. So I'm just painting some of the dark bridge areas here using the red and blue still, really sort of building up all of my sort of dark tonal values here. I'm leaving the sky white because I'm going to be building on the sky later, and it's the lightest area pretty much, and obviously the sun being the very lightest area. So I'm just really concentrating on this bottom third of the painting. So as you see here, I'm just using some yellow ochre and I'm painting this into the sky area. Mixed up a little bit of red in there as well, and just blending this in to the yellow ochre. Always rinse your brush right to the bottom of the jar when you're painting in acrylics to get rid of all the paint, so that you make sure the brush is clean. I'm adding a bit of yellow now to this yellow ochre with the touch of red, and just blending this in. Acrylics do dry quickly, so if you're starting out in acrylics, you might want to work smaller or just add a little bit of water or medium to sort of water it down a little bit so they don't dry as quick. As you saw there, I added a little bit of the red and blue to make a violet with a touch of white, to create that lovely soft violet in the sky. I'm now putting a little bit of yellow ochre onto the road, onto the pavement there as well, just to build up these tonal values and details here, keeping everything quite broad. And I've let the painting dry now, and I've mixed up some cobalt blue and a touch of red and a little bit of white, and I'm painting the sky. Now this is the last sort of stage for the sky, except when I paint the sun later. So I'm sort of blending in there, using my fingertips as well to blend if you want to. And as you go towards the horizon, just lighten with some more white paint and lots of blending as well. I'm just lightening up this top part here so it doesn't look too strong. I felt it was a little bit too strong, so you can really sort of work. So I'm painting over my underpainting now, and I'm putting a little bit of warm yellow just where the sun will be, and just blending that in. I'll let that dry naturally. So while that's drying, I've mixed up some blue, red and a touch of yellow to paint the sort of road colour. It's kind of a lovely sludgy colour, and a little bit of lighter colour on the side there for the pavement with a little bit more yellow ochre and white, and painting that same colour here on the right hand side. You can see I use my fingertips a lot to blend, and I've mixed up some red, blue and white, and I'm painting the distant buildings. So you want this colour, this tonal value to be quite pale so it gives distance. And now I'm painting a darker colour, and that's the red, blue with a touch of white, and really small touch of white, maybe a touch of the yellow ochre, and just painting the dark shapes of these buildings in the distance. So keep everything really nice and simple. Don't put too much detail at this stage. That will come later. We're building all the foundations of our painting. My painting has dried and I'm using my rigger, or you could use a liner brush, and I'm painting the trees. Now I've mixed up phthalo blue, red, any red will do, and some yellow, quite thick creamy paint. If it doesn't move so well, add a little bit of water, so it sort of, especially when you're painting smaller branches, you might find that easier. But it's a really dark silhouetted colour, and I'm painting it wet on dry onto the canvas here, onto the surface of the paper, and just drawing out these, or painting these smaller branches. I'm keeping everything simple. I don't want too much detail here. There's lots of detail in the photograph, but I'm keeping it and simplifying it. And I'm painting the tree next to it now, and this will be slightly smaller, and I've raised it up a little bit, so if you were to draw a diagonal line from the bottom of the right hand tree up to that little vanishing point, if you remember, as you can see there, they look like they're on a diagonal line, and it creates depth in your painting because all the diagonal lines appear to meet at a point on the horizon, and it's called one point perspective. So it's a really useful tool, especially if you're starting out in painting and you're painting street scenes. I've mixed up some yellow, ochre and white. I'm using a small flat brush, and I'm just painting some of the road markings, again appearing to meet on that little dot that I painted earlier, the one point perspective. I'm now painting some of the dark building marks here, the side of the building, some of the shadows, some of the windows, with my small little flat brush here. You can use a round brush as well, and just keep everything loose. It's a very impressionistic style of painting this, nice and loose, and I'm painting some markings on the dark bridge. I'm using mostly the red and blue still. The cold blue, the phthalo blue, is an excellent colour choice, and just putting some markings here on the road, again appearing to meet at that point on the horizon. What I'm doing now is I'm painting some people. They're very, very small, so don't worry. Tiny heads, and literally you could paint them like carrots, sort of large, sort of shoulders at the top and then coming to a point at the bottom. And because they're in the distance, it really just creates that illusion, and I'm using the red, blue and a touch of white. And if you wanted to add any more people, just make sure their heads remain on the same sort of level on the horizon. I'm actually using the bottom of a tube of paint. I've painted the end of it with some darks to paint the street lamps. It makes it so much easier to paint a straight line. It's a really effective little tool, and you don't have to pay any more for it. You've already bought your tube of paint, and I'm just printing with it, and I'm varying the heights of them. So the ones in the distance are smaller, the ones nearer to us are taller. And this one here to the right, I'm really going to give a bit more detail. So I'm adding some sort of the top part of the light here, and I'm using my liner brush to create this small amount of detail, and I have mixed up the blue and the red as well. So I'm just really relying on these two colours. You can add touches of yellow and touches of the yellow ochre as well if you want to just vary the colours. But if you think about it, it's just the three primary colours that we're using, just to keep everything simple, and to make your colours lighter, all you have to do is use more white. I've actually mixed up the red, the blue and the yellow here with a touch of white. I've not got much paint on my brush, and I'm just scumbling it onto the surface of the paper there. It's got a bit of texture, so make sure you don't have too much paint on your brush, and it gives that lovely effect of the foliage. And I'm painting the pavement again a lighter colour, and again scumbling it a little in a dry brush effect to create a little bit more light on my pavement. And I've mixed up the red, the blue, the touch of the yellow with some white to make it that sort of neutral pale colour. I'm adding a touch of white to the street lamps here in the light area. It really gives it a little bit of pop, and some light markings on the pavement as well, just to really add a little bit of light. I always save my whites to the end of the painting. I'm actually adding the little white accents with the tube of paint again, that little trick. It's really nice. It gives some nice straight edges as well. So you just literally paint with your brush the colour that you want and then print on there, and it really does lift the painting. Just with those little highlights there makes all the difference. I always try to get my students to resist using any white until the end, unless you're trying to mix different sort of pastel shades. I'm spattering at the end now just to stop myself from fiddling, but also to give a little bit of texture and sparkle to the pavement. Save the best till last. The sun I'm now painting, I've just sort of smudged on a yellow circular colour because there's a little yellow halo sort of effect around the sun. And now I'm using a little tube of watercolour, actually the cap, it's quite small, but use some sort of circular stencil and something to print with. And I'm just printing white now on top of that sort of yellow sort of smudgy circle I did with my fingertips. And I'm just sort of filling in with some more white to tidy up and to finish my painting. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to see more tutorials like this, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to my acrylic YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments section below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.